I don't think I have to explain to anyone here in the gun community who David Hogg is. He is the anti-gun left's current golden child. He is their teen spokesman, their paid teen spokesman, along with a few other of his classmates that were there during the shooting in Parkland. Now, there's an old adage in Hollywood that says don't work with animals or children because they'll upstage you either by their adorableness, which I don't think we got to worry about that, or by doing something really crazy. Well, it seems like that's coming true for the anti-gun left, and maybe they should rethink this whole notion of exploiting children that have been through tragedy, because no matter how much money you put behind them or how many press kits you put out asking reporters to ask them specific questions or get them gigs at special events, no matter how much you do that, they're still just children, and they're going to do things children do, like eat Tide Pods for one. But I'm not saying David Hogg eats Tide Pods, but maybe. And here I want to talk about a couple of the examples of why you shouldn't exploit children. Over the past few weeks, David Hogg has really stepped in it multiple times. And I don't want to slam David Hogg too much because he's a child. He's 19 years old now. He was 18 when all this started. Now I know a lot of people are like, 18 is an adult. Only legally. That's the only way being 18 makes you an adult, is legally. Because these people have no experience, especially the ones that come from protected backgrounds like he does. He comes from a fairly privileged background. He has no life experiences, and yet they want to shove him out on a world stage like he's got something to say that's important, when most people would just say, seen and not heard at this stage of your life. Pretending that these kids are somehow now gun control experts or violence experts because they were in the same building where a tragedy happened is like saying that every man, woman, and child that was in New York City during 9/11 is now a certified anti-terrorism expert. So that whole notion that just because they were in the close proximity of a tragedy makes them somehow an expert, that doesn't make sense. And then exploiting children or paying children to go out and be exploited makes even less sense. And like I said, I want to talk about some things he's done lately that proves that. And I'm not talking about things he did where he tweets out like, this is going to be our last midterm election. This is likely to be the last election if we don't win. Stuff like that. That's just hysterics that children engage in. And sometimes adults too. I try not to be one of those adults. But I want to talk about some of the bigger things he's done over the past few weeks. And I'm not like saying, oh, House of Cards is like real life and I understand politics because I watch House of Cards. I'm talking about some major issues. One, he tried to extort an American company. He tried to engage in an act of extortion with Smith & Wesson, saying, if you don't give this much money to this cause that pays, one of the causes that kind of pays his paycheck, we're going to run you out of business or we're going to cause you trouble. He's basically running a protection racket for gun manufacturers. If he wasn't a child, I'd be like, investigate this guy, put him in jail. But legally he is a child or an adult legally, so maybe they should investigate him and see about putting him in jail for extortion for stuff like that, because he's representing a huge organization now. He's representing the Bloomberg organization, the Everytown movement. So he's got the power behind him to back up the things he says, like we will ruin you if you don't give us this much money. So maybe that should be investigated. But that's not even the worst thing I think he's done, because that didn't really have much effect in my mind. Only thing that had the effect of doing was making people like me who go out and order another Smith & Wesson that we neither need nor can justify. The only reason I can justify the next Smith & Wesson I'm picking up is because David Hogg, made me buy it. So that's not even the worst thing. I want to talk about the worst thing he's done recently. He was in Toronto recently. At a Toronto Film Festival. Gee, what's David Hogg doing at a Toronto Film Festival? Teenagers, don't usually get speaking gigs at things like that unless they've got big money backing them. So he's up there speaking, and he's basically asking Canadians and Canadian organizations and Canadian people to come down and pour a lot of money into the political movements here in this country, to back anti-gun politicians, etc. Maybe he's just totally ignorant and he doesn't know that outside countries, foreign powers, aren't allowed to do that. That is a felony. Or maybe he just doesn't care because he thinks, well, I'm 18, I know everything, I'm better than everybody else, and I can get away with it. But calling for foreign powers to involve themselves in our politics, now don't we have a big thing going on right now because the Russians might have done that? Is it somehow, does he think it's better if the Canadians do it? I don't want the Canadians involving themselves in American politics either. So this whole thing where he's been calling for Canadian money to pour in, I guess he wants, he's not happy just getting a cut of the money coming in on the American side. He wants a cut of the money coming in from Canada too. So maybe he's just trying to increase his own paycheck. But this kid is a wannabe activist reporter. You know, he wants to be a journalist and an activist. And I've said before in videos, you can't be both. You can't be an activist journalist. You're either a journalist and you have integrity, or you're an activist and you stick to one belief. You don't actually care about the facts. Some activists care about facts, but you can't be a journalist activist because you can't preconceive your own ideas about the things you're going to report on. That's not being a journalist. So this kid is just basically a wannabe journalist who's trying to make some money while his light's shining bright. But when you start engaging in extortion, and when you start engaging in perpetuating the act of foreign powers involving themselves monetarily in our political system, well, then you've kind of stepped over the line. And I think the companies that are sponsoring him and putting him in these places where he gets to say these things in public should start being held accountable for the things he's doing, and he should start being held accountable for the things he's doing. And I'm talking directly to Bloomberg and Everytown, etc. Because if you want to pay a child to get up and speak, then you're responsible for what that child says.